There is radical, and then there is Tim Walz. There is radical, and then there is Kamala Harris. And when you put those two evils together, it is the sort of perfect storm that only George Soros could have put together. This is George Soros's dream. It's a wet dream for George Soros, to be exact. There were many different people that the Queen Kamala could have picked. She could have chosen a bunch of different folks, and they would have all had strategic placement in her ticket. I'll give you an example. There's a gentleman named Josh Shapiro. He is the governor of Pennsylvania. He's actually a popular governor, believe it or not. And Pennsylvania is a major swing state. It is in play in 2024. So you would think that Kamala Harris would look at somebody like Josh Shapiro and say, he's on the younger side. He presents well. He speaks well. And oh, by the way, he's the key to Pennsylvania. There's only a couple of swing states, folks. And the swing states, at the end of the day, is going to be what decides this election. We know Trump's going to get Florida. We know Kamala's going to get California. It's the same old story. So it comes down to places like Wisconsin and Michigan and Arizona and Georgia and Pennsylvania. You would think from a strategic standpoint that Kamala Harris would have acknowledged that. But she didn't, because Josh Shapiro made a freaking major mistake. And that mistake was he was born Jewish. He's a Jew. And Kamala Harris and the radical left have absolutely alienated the country that sits in the middle of freaking desert world and has to worry that from every coming direction, there's going to be another missile trying to kill innocent children and women. You know, your biggest concern is the stock market going to go up? Your biggest concern is bread prices going to go down? Your biggest concern is the guy down the block a child molester? And those are all big, huge problems, especially now with illegal immigration in this country. Add on something that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, which is TDA. It's a new Venezuelan gang that is worse than MS-13. You've got to worry about this because your borders are open. But all the things you got to worry about are very, very small compared to the state of Israel. They have to worry every single day whether there's going to be a new incoming missile and how long until one of those are a nuke. America has always stood against terrorism. We have always stood against those at Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas, the psychos that want to take down America, who drive airplanes into buildings, who behead people. ISIS throws them people, innocent people, based on their religion or their beliefs in vats of acid. I'll never forget one video. It just blew my mind. The amount of evil that ISIS has. They put a man in a cage and they lit him on fire, and then they made him sit there and dance until he burned to death. Then they outdid that one by taking a cage and putting a group of men in it and sunk it into a swimming pool and videoed. They put GoPros on the cage as they sunk it into the water. So not only would you see the whole thing happen, but you'd watch them die. They videoed men being beheaded on the beach. This is beyond evil. This is the devil on steroids. And yet Kamala Harris and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and all the Democrat Party at this point has forgotten about Israel and forgot about the Jews, and instead embraced Hamas, embraced Palestine, have called people like Benjamin Netanyahu, who probably spends his every waking minute trying to figure out how he's going to protect little kids at a soccer game, and now they call him a warmonger. They want him brought up on war charges that he's killing innocent people. Let's not forget how this all started on October 7. Kamala Harris is absolutely pro-terror. She is pro-crime. And so what does she do? She gets rid of the one guy who maybe could have helped her win the election. Thank God for us. But she rids of him despite him being maybe the biggest swing state of all, simply because she can't have the the look, the feel, and the sounds of having a Jewish person on the ticket. So instead, what does she do? She goes completely radical and gets the single most radical, progressive, insane governor in the United States of America, Tim Walz. Better known to me as the vice president of Somalia. If you take a look, and we have video of this, in fact, Ryan will play it as I'm talking, he swapped out the state flag. Now, there have been all these crazy excuses on why he did it and what he was trying to accomplish. But if you look at that new state flag that he waves with such pride, it looks like somebody actually took it out of Representative Ilhan Omar's trunk, which was filled with Somali flags. This man is an absolute danger to the United States of America. He is a greater danger than Kamala Harris. Reason being is Kamala Harris doesn't think for herself. She's a puppet. This guy does all of his own thinking. This guy does all of his own radicalization. I'm going to give you straight from the Wall Street Journal, who by no means can be accused of being conservative. The Wall Street Journal editorials board called out Tim Walz based on his policies alone. I'm going to read this to you because I don't want to botch any of it, and I want you to make sure that you know exactly who it is that's running for vice president. He loves increasing taxes. Although Minnesota already has the 5th highest top income rate among the states, they charge 9.85% of earnings on a single filer. Mr. Walz added a 1% surtax on net investment income above $1 million while reducing deductions, and the governor even wanted more. Minnesota is a rare state that still levies a death tax up to 16% on top of the federal 40% rate, which is one reason the state is losing taxpayers to better climates, meaning other states. Making an estimated, this is the next thing, he made it so an estimated 81,000 illegal aliens in the state of Minnesota are eligible for driver's licenses, along with health insurance through Minnesota Care public marketplace. So basically, he is empowering illegal aliens to live in his state and get the same benefits as American citizens. He funded the North Star Promise program, which provides free college for students with a family income under $80,000, including illegal aliens. So you may want to say free college all you want. It's not free. Somebody has to pay for it. And who's paying for it is the taxpayer. He created a new state system for paid family and medical leave, capped at a combined 20 weeks a year and funded by almost 1% payroll tax. So once again, 20 weeks. Think about how long that is. That is 5 months, and you're going to pay for somebody sitting at home. Mandating that public utilities generate 80% carbon-free electricity by 2030, ramping up to 100% by 2040. So it has to be completely 100% carbon-free electricity. He is a fervent believer in climate action. So in other words, he believes in voodoo. He subsidized electric vehicles by requiring electric vehicle charging infrastructure within or adjacent to new commercial and multifamily buildings. It was a must. You had no choice. You had to put it there. Passing one of the nation's most permissive abortion statutes that has essentially no limits and no age consideration for minors. He declared Minnesota to be a trans refuge, with a law saying that the state will ignore a court order for the removal of a child issued in another state because the child's parent or guardian assisted the child in receiving gender-affirming care in this state. So in other words, you want your kid to get their testicles or breasts cut off? Just go to Minnesota, no questions asked. He established an automatic voter registration and letting Minnesotans sign up for a permanent absentee ballot option. So in other words, when you're an illegal alien and you go to the DMV to get your driver's license, thanks to Mr. Walz, you can go up and say, I would like to have an absentee ballot for the rest of my life. Or if you're an American citizen, you can do the same thing. Mr. Walz's response to the 2020 riots after George Floyd, the massive maniac who was in jail for the majority of his life. Remember that dude? Well, after his killing, which took place in Minnesota, he just allowed Minneapolis to burn to the ground. He did nothing. He sat there and celebrated it. And his wife said she loved smelling the smoke burning through the city. This is how radical these people actually are. He never called in for any kind of troops. And so the questions that must be asked is, why is the state of Minnesota losing residents to other states? It writes, Republicans are circulating remarks by Mr. Walz, acknowledging what he calls his white privilege and urging his party, this is a quote, don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. So basically, he told you that he's a socialist. But he's also a thief of valor. And this may be one of the things that bothers me the most. Because it's one thing to have radicalization flowing through your veins. But it's another thing when you can steal, rob, and cheat a veteran. I'm not going to get too deep into the woods on this, but I'll get it from a very high level. If you read the Great American Newsletter every single day, you could get the details on this. Go to greatamericannewsletter.com, greatamericannewsletter.com. So this guy spent over 20 years in the National Guard. And he got to the level of what's considered E8, which is a master sergeant. He was given a promotion, but it was a conditional promotion, meaning he had to accomplish a couple of steps, check a couple of boxes, and he would become an E9. Well, it turns out to be that he never checked the boxes. He never finished the criteria. He didn't do any of it. So that temporary lift that he got to an E9 was stripped from him. He wound up having E8 status. He was a master sergeant, not a sergeant major. It's significant because it marks everything about your service, including you get a higher pension. Making it worse than just the fact that his bio still reads that he is an E9. So in other words, he is lying to all of America. While he was serving, there was this little thing called the Iraq War. The Department of Defense sent a letter to his battalion stating that they would have to deploy to Iraq. And just when they were about to go, just when that whole battalion was about to leave, Mr. Walz tapped out. He didn't go to Iraq. And he used the excuse of running for Congress as his reason why. There are two veterans who are very, very upset with this whole thing. And they've written articles about it. They've written many different things about it because they think valor was stolen. And out of respect to their service, I'm going to read what they wrote, even though it repeats a little bit of what I've already told you. On September 17th, 2004, he was conditionally promoted to Command Sergeant Major. The conditions had been outlined to him when he was counseled, and he signed the Statement of Agreement and Certification. If the conditions are not met, the promotion is null and void, like it never happened. In early 2005, a warning order was issued to the 125th Field Artillery Battalion, which included the position he was serving in, to prepare to be mobilized for active duty for deployment to Iraq. On May 16th, 2005, he quit, leaving the Field Artillery Battalion and its soldiers hanging, without its senior non-commissioned officer as the battalion prepared for war. His excuse to other leaders was that he needed to retire in order to run for Congress, which is false, according to a Department of Defense directive. He could have run and requested permission from the Secretary of Defense before entering active duty, as many reservists have. If he had retired normally and respectfully, you would think he would have ensured his retirement documents were correctly filled out and signed, and that he would have ensured he was reduced to Master Sergeant for dropping out of the academy. Instead, he waited for his paperwork to catch up to him. His official retirement document states, "Soldier not available for signature." On September 10th, 2005, conditionally promoted Command Sergeant Major Walz was reduced to Master Sergeant. It took a while for the system to catch up to him, as it was uncharted territory. Literally no one quits in the position he was in or drops out of the academy except him. In November of 2005, while the battalion trained for war at Camp Shelby, Mississippi, it received an offer from retired Master Sergeant Walz. He offered to fundraise for the battalion's bus trip home over Christmas that year. I guess that's his version of service. The 125th Field Artillery Battalion was deployed for 22 months in 2006 to 2007. During this time, they were restricted by Army regulations and could not speak out against a candidate for office. In November 2006, he was elected to the House of Representatives. He claims to be the highest-ranking enlisted service member ever to serve in Congress, even though he was conditionally promoted to Command Sergeant Major less than 8 months, quit before his obligations were met, and was reduced to Master Sergeant for retirement. Yes, he served at that rank, but was never qualified at that rank and will receive retirement benefits at one rank below. You be the judge. This man allowed his city to go on fire and left it that way. This man is a friend to illegal aliens who steal, rape, kill, and take away things that are rightfully yours. This man is a fan of the whole trans movement, to where you could cut off this part of your body and that part of your body, even if you're only 13 or 14 years old. This guy wants to take all of your money, strip it from you, so this way he can pay for those radical things. How long until he and Kamala sit there and say, let's change the flag? Let's get rid of the stars and stripes. This man is an evil man. He is cut from the likes of a George Soros persona. He and Kamala Harris are the single most dangerous ticket to ever be introduced on a ballot. If you or anyone you know think that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are worthy of the leadership in this country, not only are you absolutely deranged, but I hope to God that Elon Musk comes up with a rocket ship that sends people to Mars, because I think we should all pay for you to be on the first ship with a one-way ticket.